Okay, so I thought I could also add a small note about the irreversible steps that you're gonna be seeing in your pathway. So the idea here is that irreversible steps, as it says in their names, they're not reversible, okay? Meaning that it's probably better to regulate those steps. And um, the general steps that you're going to see in any pathway that are going to be irreversible is going to be the first committed step and branch points. Okay, so the idea here is that you're going to want to, like, for example, in this case, we're going to make, so this step right over here is irreversible. Okay, so we want to regulate these irreversible steps because you can't undo whatever you did. And then also the branch points, so 3 and 5. So I wanted to make a note here and say, a lot of students accidentally say, oh, I'm gonna make this A the irreversible step because that's the first one. But make sure that you're putting, the irreversible steps are enzymes, okay? Enzymes are the things that we can regulate and activate and inhibit. So don't say that your irreversible step is intermediate A. It's the actual enzyme that's catalyzing the conversion from A to B. That's the irreversible step, okay? So irreversible step is always the first committed step and the branch point. I like to think of it like the branch point is that first step that, these ideas are kind of the same because the branch point is like that first step that commits this C to this branch, okay? So it's kind of the same idea that A is like that first step that commits it to this, and then C is that first step that commits it to the next branch. So it's the same idea, okay? So we're gonna have 1, 3, and 5 be regulated because those are irreversible steps. It's the first committed step and branch point. I also wanted to add that you can also have other highly exergonic reactions. And what it means when it's highly exergonic, it's just another way of saying that the delta G is much, much, much less than 0. So for example, ATP hydrolysis that's something that's highly exergonic. So for example, if we had this coupled to ATP hydrolysis, okay, what we're saying in this case is this is also highly exergonic, so we'd want to also regulate this step, okay? So it's not always, it's not only the first committed step and branch point, it could also be any step that's highly exergonic, and also it could be any other step that can't be undone. For example, if we had another step where we had a gas leave as a byproduct. So for example, let's say in this step, we had CO2 leave. So in our body, we breathe out CO2, so the CO2 is going to leave the body, for example, and we can't go backwards from FTE because then we need to capture the CO2, but gases are going to be leaving. So the idea here is that the first step is going to be irreversible, branch points irreversible, any highly exergonic reaction, such as ATP hydrolysis, that's also irreversible, and then any other step that can't be undone is also irreversible. And we're going to need to regulate these steps. And I'm going to go in the next video on how we can regulate these steps. So stick around if you want to see that.